What's up? We took a massive loss, bro. Not even massive, and it's what I try and risk. The only reason I lost 500, I try and risk 400, is just because I didn't even have time. I was looking for my targets on the micro and Q chart, and I literally just get railed to the downside before I could even place a stop, and it just hit my loss limit, which is actually very good because I my first thought was to keep trading. That was my first reaction, and then I'm very glad that I had already locked out my other account before the day because after this account got locked, I was just desperate to try and place a trade. So I'm glad that the measures were in place to keep me from myself. So today I'm very, very frustrated, but realistically, I didn't really do anything horribly wrong, which is weird because the emotions I was feeling and still am because this is literally, I mean, about 15 minutes later, but it's, what time was this? 17? Well, about 30 minutes later, 20 minutes later. But I feel horrible. I feel very upset. I feel frustrated. Um, but in terms of because we had the right precautions in place, which was the daily loss limit, which was locking our other account because we knew we didn't want to trade it today. It's kind of helped keep me from blowing, a lot of money or even more, right? It could have been a even worse day if I didn't have that stuff in place and I kept trading and lost, right? So it's frustrating to see this trade now working out very well. And I'll kind of go over my trade, things I could learn from, and stuff like that. But as you can see, the account balance is at $813 positive, which is still good, which doesn't change anything. Tomorrow we show up and we try and take a winner, right? But mentally, there's a lot of things that I'm just not performing at a good, high enough level to see the success that I want to succeed. So I have to understand that. I have to accept that, and I have to try and work on it, right? Because I'm very, very frustrated today losing. You should not be. You shouldn't have any type of emotion or disappointment or whatever. But I'm very upset, and the reason being is that I lost $500, and again, I could have lost less. I'll pull up the execution, or or I kind of want to go over kind of what I was thinking or how I feel. So, I feel very frustrated because one, the very next setup that was with the same premise of my first trade works, right? But we have no idea that's gonna work until it does, right? It's all hindsight. But I had to see the very next setup I got work perfectly. And what's even more upsetting is that I don't even know if I would even have benefit from it, right? Because this trade, right, if you were in here, especially if I would have lost, we would have hit this high, which was only 20 points, but I probably would have been scared, scaled something, or maybe gone break even and got stopped out. Maybe I didn't, right? And we come back down to this inverse and we hold it, right? And then after this candle, magically, we would never get stopped out again. But this might be my first TP, which would have been 40 points. And if I was on 6 micros like my first trade, I would take off 4 and leave 2 runners to this high, which is this low resistance liquidity run high here. And I would take off 1 there and maybe leave a runner for higher, or maybe not, it just depends, but I would be happy taking both off, right? So hypothetically, we would get 40 points on the 4 micros, which would be around $300 something, and then we would get about 230 on 2, so about 430. So this would have been around a $700 to $800 trade if it hits the take profit. That stop would be at break even. But I don't. Part of the frustration is the fact that I don't even think I would be able to benefit fully like this, because if I got in this trade, I probably wouldn't be able to hold through this, even though there's no resistance. It's not even making lower lows. It's trending up. I would be so nervous on every one of these black candles. I would be so nervous that I'd probably be pulling out the trade or cutting some profits, or who knows, trailing my stop up. And if I trailed my stop, I would never have technically gotten stopped yet, but that's not the point. The point is that it could come down and take me out here. and stopped me for 71 points instead of, and stopped me for 45 points less, right? If I had my stop here, hypothetically, and then it came down and traded down, got me here, and then went up, I don't know how I would manage the trade because I'm not in it, but I do know my bad habits that I typically have and how they could manifest in this trade. So just watching it play out, it was really frustrating to lose because, again, I stuck to my plan. I'll go over why the trade probably wasn't the best trade to enter, but why I still like it, why it's not the end of the world. But it's just very, very frustrating. And let's see here. We would hit 100 points. So I could definitely scale one at 100 points. But who knows? This is all hypothetical. Maybe, I don't know. Who knows how I would exactly handle this position. But we have this 5-minute fair value gap that could hold price. So right here, if I trail my stop, I would get stopped out here. So if it goes back up, then I would have been stopped out prematurely. But we don't know where it's going to go. I don't know if it's going to keep going up or whatever. But if I was in a trade live and I left my runners, this 33-point pullback would frighten the living daylight out of me. But back to the emotions of the loss. I don't even hate the trade. I like this trade more because we resweep this low and we inverse again. Right? We inverse here on the 32nd too, so not really much difference. But if we waited to come back down and retap, right, we could have gotten a better entry here if we were a beast, but that's like hypothetical. But my entry was this inverse fair value gap right here. And the reason being was that we inversed this 1 minute after holding this imbalance, which was also like an order block, which was also a 2-minute order block, right? But this 1 minute order block here, and we have a 15-minute fair value gap and a 15-minute order block. This was a news candle, so we had a lot of volatility. But this 15-minute close was very bullish in my opinion. You can see this candle, this black one. We had this long tail, which was the news. We hold this fair value gap and this order block very strong. We come back down to, let's see if it was consequent encroachment. Probably not. Was not, but we come back down and see, this would be terrifying and it would probably come back and stop me out. But, you know, I'm not in the trade to even understand what would, you know, be the case. Like, would it come down and stop me out? Who knows? I don't know. But this would be terrifying, live time. What do? We come back down to the 5-minute fair value gap, and we'd like to see this thing hold to then push price higher, right? That's probably what we're doing. But live time, it's terrifying to see, and I wouldn't have any confidence in my system or my runners, even though I would have taken profits and could let my runners run and make it a big day, right? But I would be terrified, and I would probably want to scale, and everything inside of me would be like, this 5 minutes not going to hold, when in reality, we don't know, right? It could hold and go higher. It should hold and go higher, right? If my drawn liquidity is correct, this is a nice reaction to the tap, right? We should hold this imbalance and go higher. So I want to see that happen. But again, back to this. We had that bullish reaction. We come back down into the 15-minute one more time. We inverse, and I get in longs here. I was targeting this as my main high, but I would have gone to break even or scaled at this high. And looking back, this isn't my favorite trade just because the risk to reward, you really have to put your stop loss. I mean, technically to be invalidated underneath this low, but I'm not going to have an 85 point stop loss. But I can't really put it at this low with 6 micros. It was really just around here. Like, I kind of need to have it kind of loosely hover around this low, like here. And that just wasn't going to be really exciting for me to see it even come down there. I was just hoping for a quick move up and a straight move up, which the market doesn't always give you. So we instantly got stopped out within seconds, which made it more frustrating to lose, because losing your trade instantly and losing that much that quickly is frustrating because I don't even have big winning days, right? If you guys have been keeping up, I had one day where I made $650. That was my biggest day by far. The second biggest day on the last account, on days I wasn't just trying to get it to an X amount of money to keep it on rebuild date, but the second biggest day was $230. So of an entire month, and part of that is a lot of that's due to me having fear when I'm in a winner, right? I could be in a trade that's this good and take partials here and get stopped out at break even, and it would be a fantastic trade, but I just personally didn't let it play out right. Again, live time, I probably would have closed the trade when I saw this instead of realizing this is a 5-minute fair value gap that should push price higher, which is it's doing, right? It came down to this 5-minute and has a 35-point reaction out of it. So even if this was scary, if it was coming down, I could at least have scaled back at this high, or who knows, whatever. I could now at least confidently trail my stop loss to here and be okay with the fact that if it does come down and still goes up, at least I waited for the retracement and didn't get stopped out before the initial retracement. Now I really wouldn't like to see this low get touched again, unless we take out this high first, minimum. I think we should go to this high without coming back down here. That's just my opinion. Again, though, you let your runners run, and I need to get better at that when I'm in winning trades. But again, the most often scenario when I am in winning trades is that I don't let my runners run. And we just inversed this 1 minute, so I would like to see this now really not come back down, because we should be good to go here. We should hold that imbalance small, and it's not really too important, but the 2 minute is a little bit nicer. So we have that 2 minute. We should be good to go here. We have about 26 more points we need to run, 15 more at the high. You could scale 1 if you had 2 at this high now, because it would make sense that if we do come back up there, we could reject. But again, that's just nitpicking how you manage a trade. But back to my point that I'm trying to make, just really frustrating because it's crazy how quickly I can lose so much money and how hard it is for me to win that much, right? Because when you're in a winning trade, you have to deal with it going up, and maybe it's up a lot, but then it comes back down. You have to deal with that downswing while you're up, and you have to deal with, your targets and scaling and risk to reward and, how long can you handle being in a trade, right? This trade would have been going for about 30 minutes and it still hasn't taken profit yet on the final take profit. Right? How long could you handle being in a trade? Whereas losing, you have no control over that because you'll sit there as long as you want if it's around break even. And yeah, you don't want to sit around break even for an hour, but it's better than just losing right away. So you don't sit there, and hope for it to be a quick stop loss, right? You want to see it maybe if it's stalling, whatever. Like if we were in this trade here and it's stalling here for these few minutes, you're not being like, okay, I want to be quickly come down here so I can just get out of this trade and be done. You're like, okay, I'm fine here. This sucks, but let's just get a big move, which we do. But again, so when I lose that quick, my first reaction was, let me make it back, which is why, again, I'm glad that I had the things in place to stop me from hurting myself further or blowing up more money on my account. So I'm glad that I have those things in place and that I couldn't change it. And that's why, again, I didn't personally choose not to break any rules and do anything terrible and blow more money in revenge trade. But I did actually take the precautions necessary to protect myself from those things, which is revenge trading, spiraling, doing all those bad things. I had to personally set the daily loss limit. So even though in the moment after the loss, I wanted to just make it back instantly, I didn't act on those desires because I took precaution beforehand to stop me from myself, basically. So we are now 16 points from take profit. We were 13 points from take profit. So at this point, my stop loss would be getting trailed to here, right? That would be 50. We'd be losing 66 points. Once we take this high, I would probably scale one more. So I would scale one here for 100 and something points. And then, or I'd probably just leave it at this point if I'm being honest. I don't know. But this is nice to see, but also really annoying. And let's see the full take profit. Should come in on this next candle. So close and then push through. See, even here, I would be like, okay, honestly, I'd probably just close the position because I'd be really annoyed and frustrated and scared. boom, we'd hit full take profit. So that's being demonstrated. That's why I started this video here, is just kind of show this play out. And this was another beautiful entry on the 5 minute to 1 minute, 30 points. It's not the best because the risk reward's just kind of mid, but that's a re-entry if you really wanted to on the 2 minute even. 17 points to make 30. Like, it's again not terrible, but again, what did we talk about when we were watching this trade play out? When it was selling off like this, we were just pulling back to a 5 minute, right? These concepts still work, right? What do we get? We hold a higher time frame imbalance after we manipulate, Judas swing, whatever. We displace higher, boom, we displace higher, we pull back to an inefficiency, and we push higher to the objective, right? What do we complete? We complete a buy model, right? Right here. This is a beautiful program here. We had S&T at this low. We had sold off all day yesterday, so we could expect some relief to the upside. Very clean day, but the difference between a clean day in the market and me losing $500 is a very slim margin. And I was super frustrated because it just seems like I can't get ahead. It seems like I can't pass my accounts. It just seems like I'm so far away from what I want to do because of how little I take good winners. So I think that's why this is just a day that's going to reemphasize the fact that when I get a trade like this, that by all means, if I took this trade with 6 micros, we're going to do the math right here, right now. With 6 micros, if I scaled 4 off here and then went to break even, 40 points, times that by 8, because 8 or 4 contracts, 2 per point, so $8 per point, that's $320. So just this trade here, if we got in here and scaled with 4 micros, we would have risked 38 points, so that would be a little bit much, but 38 times 12. We risked 456, so less than we lost, right? We would lock in. We would lock up. After this, we'd lock up 40 times 8, $320. So we'd have $320 locked up at this high. We could not lose that. That's guaranteed on the day. That would be guaranteed our we would guarantee a second best ever day in the last month on this one trade just by holding and taking 4 off at this high. And then this is where the real money comes in and where you really make your edge in trading is that you just let your runners go. And if you come back and get stopped out, you're like, okay, cool. We missed out on $160, right? You're risking 160 now because you were up 160. This is the only other place you could have scaled, right? Maybe you scale it this high, whatever. But in terms of when you're in this first trade here, this is your scale point. You decide how many you want to take off, and then everything else you're risking in a sense, right? Because at this point, this is where you could have scaled your full position, right? So if you scaled all 6 contracts for 40 points, that's $480. So 480 minus 320 is 160. So you're leaving 160 on the table. You're willing to let that 160 come down and make you nothing while you lock up $320 because you allow your 2 micros to run, and they run for 114 points. So basically 115. So 114 points times that by 2 because you have 2 micros, times that by $2 is $456. So the 2 micros that you left to go after locking up $320 by themselves would have made $456. So you add that to the $320 that you locked up, that is a $775 day, right? After a day like today where I lose 600 or 500, it's not super appealing because, we just lost a lot of money. But $775 does a lot to the bankroll, right? If we add that to our current balance of 806, we'd be up 1,580. We'd be halfway past with the count. But again, my point being is that's when you only hit. Imagine if you didn't scale all 4 there and you just scaled, and you had the ability to scale half. So you scale 3 off. 3 times 2 times 40. That would be 240 locked up. But then on the real move, 114 times 3 times 2. 600. You would have made $684 plus 240. You would have made $900 on this trade. And imagine if you get to the point where you hold your full position to that profit target, and you accept the 3 risks to reward. You leave your stop loss here, you never move it, and you let the trade play out. Now you just made 114 points on 6 micros. That's a $1,300 day, right? These are the difference between being negative or unprofitable, break even, slightly profitable, and very profitable. Or just risk tolerance, confidence in your setups, letting your trades play out. And today worked out beautifully. Today worked out like a beautiful buy model. I was waiting for this, and what can we learn from this, right? We took the first entry. We didn't position ourselves to where we could take a second entry, right? And hypothetically, if we took this next entry, we probably would have messed it up or wouldn't made the maximum like we could have because of fear and anxiety and trade anxiety and mistakes within the trade, right? So a lot to learn from today. Again, I'm very, very frustrated with how it went. I can't handle losses very well, so I'm glad that, again, like I took the precautions so that I couldn't make it a worse day for myself. I took the precautions before the trading today, because today could have been really bad, because if this trade didn't lock me out, I could have, over leveraged myself and then lost even more. It would come down 16 points. I could have closed it. Who knows? Who knows what could have happened? This trade could have just failed, right? It doesn't have to win. Hindsight tells us it did, but it didn't have to. So, again, my point being is that I'm glad I took the precautions so that I couldn't have a horrible day, and the only reason it feels like a horrible day is because of how I handle a loss. How I'm handling the loss is not good right now. But this is a crucial day in my journey to be able to stomach losses and sit on it and feel the loss and understand, where did I go wrong here? Honestly, I have no knowledge of this candle about to come in and destroy me to the downside here. I don't mind this trade. It just takes me out of the market and I lose. I think this is an acceptable loss, right? I don't have too much to complain about here. Maybe besides the fact that we had this 30-second imbalance that we were respecting, but that's, again, nitpicking, right? We run this imbalance. That's just, I don't like to get that micro time frame. What makes this trade valid here? We sweep liquidity inside this imbalance, we hold the imbalance, and we start displacing higher through an imbalance, right? We have this scaling point. Another reason, we just swept liquidity here and had a bearish reaction. So just because we inverse right away doesn't mean that we have to instantly go up. But it's not the worst. And again, this is another trade that I think would be valid too. This one's almost better. This trade's better in the sense of we finally get the displacement out of this range. We finally displace higher instead of trying to guess in here where the displacement is going to come from down here. We get the displacement, we come down to the imbalance, and then we inverse the imbalance on the way up. So then you have your 20-point stop loss, wherever you want to put it. Worst case, 38-point stop loss, and you target 30 points, right? And you let the trade play out. 2 minutes go by, then in the next minutes you hit your target. So 4-minute trade, 5-minute trade, and then you could, on this trade, you'd leave runners to who knows where. You'd leave runners to the completed buy model, which would be up here, or you leave runners to wherever you want, right? It doesn't matter. But this, in my opinion, would be a better trade because you have a lot more context. You have the draw on liquidity basically guaranteed, right? You put in a failure to take it out. You come down, you retrace to an inefficiency, you sweep some liquidity, and boom, you run an imbalance. That's a great model, in my opinion. I didn't get to capitalize on it. Live time, would I be confident in it? I don't know, right? But it's so frustrating because when I take a loss, it makes me feel like I know nothing, because it's just like I feel like an idiot. Like I took the trade, and I'll pull up the trade recap now. It made me feel like an idiot. It made me feel like a fool. It made me feel like I was never going to be able to trade. All these emotions came in right at once because of just how brutal it is to lose and lose in this fashion, right? When we look at this trade here, and you can watch me more honestly than the trade itself, right? So we get in the trade and it's just going down, and I was like, okay, let me draw this inverse, like, maybe it's gonna bounce off that. And I was going to the different time frame, and it's down 340. I'm like, holy crap, it's down $400 in like seconds. 447. I'm like, I'm gonna lose, and then boom, my account got locked out. This trade literally I literally lose $500 in, let's see how long. We got in the trade a second before, 1 second, right? Let's see when we lose. I mean, it was so quick and brutal that I couldn't even process my emotions through because of how aggressive it was. I was down so much. I got a bad fill. I should not have got filled that high up, right? We should have got in the close. 22 seconds it took us to lose. 22. We got filled up here. We should have got filled lower. It wouldn't have saved our life much. But we took the full loss here, right? It came all the way down. So we're lucky we had this to protect us because we could have lost a lot, right? But regardless, that was when it was frustrating. Look at my face, right? When we lose, I was like, oh, crap, right? I couldn't believe it. So that was the trade to show you guys. And again, I'm glad I didn't do anything to make my account worse off. But it's just annoying because getting the review of this makes me feel better. But it's just like, how much longer am I going to be one mistake away, right? Or a minute, literally, okay, maybe not a minute, but this candle came in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes till the re-entry, and it works exactly how I want it to. And it's like, it just makes me feel like everything's luck. But it's still not luck. I still have the ability to understand that this is not luck. Or, it's probability game. Like, this didn't have to play out. But this 3 risk reward isn't luck that it got there, right? I had a target. I had a plan. The market moved. We come back down the 5 minute. We inverse again. Re-entry. Boom. Entry here. Break even here. 15-minute fair value gap. Turtle soup right here. Like, there was a lot of good stuff in it. Like, it's not just luck. It's probability in terms of it doesn't have to work. But it's like, it works because I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm looking for, and these things repeat. But when I take these losses, especially when they lose that quick, it just makes you feel like you're never going to get there and you're never going to understand it and you can't do it and all these different things. And it's just annoying because then the next setup comes and you don't really have confidence in this as much, but it's exactly this just a few minutes later after resweeping this low. I really can't tell you why that we needed to do this just to keep going higher. I don't have any reason for that. And I don't have any reason why they completely avoid this setup ever again. I really don't have any perfect answer, right? Yeah, I don't really have any exact reason why this is so much better of a re-entry than the first one and why the first one was so destined to fail. Right? And I don't even see another real entry pattern besides just this order block ends up holding nice. Boom, this inverse. Like, there's just a lot of confluence that's holding us long here. And I think it just takes entering trades and letting them play out, right? Because let's say I did get in this trade. And I do get in, I just have to let the thing play out. I can't worry about it going up here and then closing like this and then getting a red candle and closing here, because look what happens. Hindsight, of course, look what happens, but this happened. And if I was in this trade, this would still happen to me if I was in the trade. And that's where I think I get so afraid, is that when I'm in trades, I forget that they can actually go in my direction. And I almost forget that they can play out to exactly where I want. And I forget that my runners can hit take profit. And I forget that I can do these things. I almost forget that this is possible. And yeah, it's like I forget that these things are possible and that they're not just luck and that I can actually do this myself, so that when I am in a winning trade, I can't capitalize on it super well. So I don't want to just keep going on because I keep kind of saying the same thing, but I'm really frustrated with, I need to learn how to lose better, because then I won't be as afraid to lose, and then I won't be as afraid to let my winners play out. But today's really frustrating, and I'm not really 100% sure what to really say on this first trade. Like, I can't really figure out why it lost, besides the fact that it just lost. Because this reentry I still like, and it worked out. So that makes me believe that this wasn't horrible, right? Like, the bias was right, the idea was right, the targets were right. The low resistance liquidity, I still think we go higher. The trade played out smoothly here. This reentry was nice. everything works out well, right? But I guess I do need to change my risk management so I can allow more than one trade per day if I lose. But then I need to make sure that if I get into another trade, I treat every trade, the same. The same way I would have treated my first entry if it ran up here. I need to treat this trade and let it do the same thing regardless of how much I'm down, right? If I take a loss, I can't just exit this trade whenever I'm break even. I have to let it play out, and then I can make profit, right? I got to treat each trade individually. So a lot of learning from today, but just a lot of frustration, a lot of doubt comes in on these days, but reviewing the chart's nice. That's why I like making these videos, is because it makes me realize, I can learn from it instead of just, if I would have turned my computer off after the first loss and never saw the rest of it, then I wouldn't have gained that experience, that live market reading and really seeing the price kind of do its thing. So that's a positive, but it's really just disheartening because I just really want to pass my eval account. I'm just so desperate to do it because I would just love to be able to pass an eval for the first time. I've been October 2nd will be a whole year of trading evaluations, prop firms, and I've made a lot of progress, but I've still never passed one. I've never gotten a payout. So it's just like I'm tired of losing. I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of failing. I've been failing for a year, and I know it takes a lot of time. I'm not saying, I've been doing it for a year, I should be profitable or whatever, but regardless of who you are, how long you've been doing it, regardless of if you, I understand it, it's a process, and I'm trusting, and I can trust the process. I can keep working. But regardless of all those things, at the end of the day, losing for a year is hard. Not passing the eval for an entire year is difficult. There's a lot of just difficult things that go with trading. Even if you understand trading, I understand what I'm doing. I understand what I'm learning. I understand the process. I understand getting experience. I understand, all those things. But although I understand it, and I've seen, all the people's motivational stories and all this stuff and whatever, it doesn't change the fact that losing for a year straight really hurts. So that's kind of where I am today. But we still have 2 more days today, or 2 more days this week. We have 2 more days on this account. So that being said, I will probably up my risk. I'll risk about 500 per trade. So it's not really upping it too much, but I'll risk around 500 trade because I have 2 days on this account, and I either want it back to 1,000 or beyond, or maybe we don't increase the risk. I'll see what we do. I'm not really sure. I don't like these accounts rebuild like this because then it kind of changes up my mental and kind of changes up what I'm trying to do. But nothing really changes. We just try and take a good trade tomorrow. So it doesn't matter about where our account's out, anything like that, because we just are trying to show up and take the best possible trades and find trades like this and capitalize on them when we do. And then I'll become a successful trader if I can do that. So I appreciate you guys watching the videos. If you made it this far, make sure to drop a comment or something, or leave a like, whatever. Subscribe, you know the deal. But I appreciate you guys watching the videos. Hope you guys had a good day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.